Philippine Vice President wades into Manila hostage tragedy. 2 French journalists killed in Mali. And the US and Pakistan at loggerheads over Taliban leaders' killing.
Good evening. The Vice President of the Philippines has insisted the country's President, Benigno Aquino, will not apologize for the 2010 Manila bus hostage tragedy. He also warned Hong Kong not to take any action that would affect ties between China and the Philippines. Evelina Leung has more.
It's been more than 3 years since the Manila bus hostage tragedy, and the dispute continues over issues such as an apology and compensation. Up till now, the Philippine government has refused to apologize for the bloodshed that left 8 Hong Kong people dead. And that is not about to change, according to the country's vice president, who spoke to TVB News in Manila.
You also have to understand that our president cannot make an apology for the whole nation because it happened in only one place. It didn't involve the whole country.
The Vice President also warned Hong Kong against taking any drastic action against the Philippines, such as possible sanctions and the withdrawal of visa-free access to Filipino visitors.
Matters like this must have not to go to that extent. That will affect the good relations between the Philippines and China. And we must not destroy the thousands of years that we have built of good relations culturally and historically between China and the Philippines.
And he pointed out that the city of Manila is now willing to offer an apology. Here in Hong Kong, the government said whether any sanctions will be imposed on the Philippines will largely depend on lawmakers' stance. Secretary for Security Lai Tong-kwok said the Legislative Council will be discussing the issue during its meeting on Wednesday. The Philippines is Hong Kong's 18th largest trading partner. Bilateral trade reached $60.5 billion last year. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
Executive Council convener Lam Woon Kwong today defended the government's decision to grant only 2 new free-to-air TV licenses. Lam said a consultant's report showed that approving all 3 applicants could have forced other stations to shut down, resulting in havoc in the television market. John De Silva has the story.
During a radio interview this morning, the EXCO convener said a consultant's report helped tip the decision to grant 2 additional free-to-air TV licenses, not 3. Lam Woon Kwong said the Executive Council believes that if all 3 new applicants were accepted, it is likely that at least one of the new or existing stations would not survive. That's because of fierce competition in a limited advertising market. As to the reasons why the government rejected the bid by Ricky Wong's Hong Kong television network, Lam insisted that information should not be disclosed to the public due to its commercially sensitive nature. He added that the court remains the most appropriate avenue to deal with any grievances.
The decision has been made. Of course, it's open to any applicant to seek judicial review if they feel that the process has not been fairly treated.
Lam also expressed hopes that the government would make an effort to further clarify its decision due to the public discontent that it caused. His comments come as the government tries to lobby pro-establishment legislators to reject the use of special LegCo powers to force the administration to explain its stance. And allegations that the government granted certain legislators privileged access to documents relating to the licensing decision are angering pan-Democrats. Ronnie Tong slammed the chief executive for doing so while claiming that the information is confidential. A motion aimed at forcing the government to disclose the reasons behind its TV licensing decision will be up for discussion during Wednesday's LegCo meeting. That followed a failed attempt by pan-Democrats to invoke the Legislative Council ordinance at the House committee earlier. João da Silva, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, the governments of France and Mali are condemning the abduction and killing of 2 French journalists by gunmen in a small Malian town. The leaders of both countries are calling the killings despicable and barbaric. As James Aitken reports, the hunt is now on to track down those responsible.
The 2 journalists were on assignment for Radio France International in the town of Kidal in northern Mali. Kidal was at the center of an uprising last year that plunged Mali into chaos, which then led to a coup in Mali's capital. A French-led military intervention earlier this year drove out the militants, but rebels have since returned to parts of northern Mali. Christophe Delors from Reporters Without Borders said 51-year-old Ghislaine Dupont and 58-year-old Claude Verlan were seized in the middle of the day yesterday after interviewing a local official representing a separatist group.
They were driven out of the city, and 15 kilometers far away from the city center, they have been shot. An helicopter of the French army followed the vehicle, but he arrived too late.
Through a spokesman, the Mali government condemned what it called a cowardly act. It also acknowledged that changes must be made in the region to guarantee the security of both locals and foreigners. The French Foreign Ministry is investigating, but early suspicion points to al-Qaeda-linked militants. Dupont and Verlan had experience working in Western Africa, but despite the presence of thousands of French soldiers and UN peacekeepers in the region, northern Mali remains a rear base for al-Qaeda's North African operations. France's defense ministry said the French army had warned the reporters not to travel to Kidal. The killings come just days after 4 French hostages who had been kidnapped by al-Qaeda in Niger were released after 3 years in captivity. James Aitken, TVB News.
Security forces in Pakistan have been placed on high alert after a US drone strike on Friday killed the leader of the Pakistani Taliban. Islamabad says Washington has done more harm than good, accusing it of undermining a burgeoning peace process in the country.
Pakistan is furious after the United States carried out another drone attack on its soil on Friday, which killed the leader of the Pakistani Taliban, Mullah Masood. Security forces are on high alert in case the Taliban decides to launch a retaliatory attack. Islamabad says the drone strike also undermined upcoming peace talks with the Taliban.
First and foremost, the government of Pakistan does not see this drone attack as an attack on an individual, but as an attack on the peace process. Brick by brick, in the last 7 weeks, we tried to evolve a process through which we can bring peace to Pakistan. And what have you done? You have scuttled it.
Still, Masood was wanted by Pakistani authorities for his role in a string of Taliban attacks in the country. But the new tensions between Islamabad and Washington, even though the US assassinated Pakistan's #1 enemy, illustrates how complicated and delicate the issue is. Pakistan's Interior Minister says constant US meddling in its internal affairs since the 2001 September 11th terror attacks has only made things worse.
The essence of the matter is that Pakistan, on the eve of 9/11, was a peaceful country. Those 9 or 10 individuals who carried out the attack on the Twin Towers, not one was from Pakistan. Not one of them had set foot on Pakistan. And yet, the blowback from the reaction of the United States has turned this country upside down.
Friday's drone attack left 4 others dead as well as Masood. It happened in the country's tribal region of North Waziristan, a part of Pakistan where state control has been tenuous at best. Apart from domestic attacks, Masood was believed to be behind a failed car bombing in New York's Times Square in 2010. He was on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list with a $5 million reward for information leading to his capture.
Britain's Guardian newspaper has reported it isn't just America's NSA at fault. Spy agencies in Europe have also been using sneaky techniques to keep tabs on people and organizations. Citing documents leaked by former US National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden, The Guardian said methods included tapping fibre optic cables, and working secretly with telecoms companies. The Guardian named 5 Western European countries where intelligence agencies had been developing such methods, and these included Germany and France, which had made such a stink about US spying activity. The newspaper said the European agencies cooperated with others, including Britain, which in turn received lots of intelligence from the NSA.
And still to come in the news. Security concerns about popular Facebook app. A look at the development of boxing in China. And celebrating the Indian Festival of Lights.